According to YouTube, we are live. Welcome to Corner Comics, episode number 6. This is your weekly comic book reading club. Joined by my friends, we suggest a few issues each. We go through those issues, and then we talk about them on a weekly basis. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see the reading list ahead of time. And let's just get into it. Emmanuel, welcome back, sir.
Good to be back,
sir.
And Russ.
Always a pleasure.
So this week we are doing 6 issues. I'm going to run down the list. We got Guardians of the Galaxy number 11. This is the current run. Silver Surfer number 34. This is from the 1987 run. Avengers number 26. That's from the current run as well. A lot of current issues this week. Far Sector number 1. Spider-Verse number 2, which is the current Spider-Verse that's going on, not the 2015 one that they did. And Flash Forward number 3, which is also the current miniseries that's going on. Russ, you didn't write any comments in the Google Doc that we share with each other.
Because I'm saving them for the live episode. You don't want to hear. If I don't want to upset you then, I'd rather upset you now on camera.
So, overall, how do we feel about each other's picks? Because I had issues with some of the books, but they weren't like, it didn't affect my enjoyment of reading them. Are
we discussing my not doing comments, or are we going to discuss? I just want to know where we're moving forward to.
I was just curious about it overall because I thought it was interesting that you were like, nope, just hating on all the books this week.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was. I wasn't as inspired. I'm looking for books. There's a lot. Say 52 books came out this week, right?
Yeah.
Right. And of those books that came out this week, it wasn't really any that was like, oh man, right. And it wasn't that they were necessarily terrible. It's just that, at $3 and however much they cost a comic, I was like, man, there's a lot of just mediocrity out there. Not bad, not terrible, right? But recommend people to buy.
Right.
So I'm sort of, so instead of being caught up in that emotion, I thought I'd just wait and talk about it.
To your point, there was one book in particular, which I'll elaborate more, but the ending comments that I made was, I wouldn't necessarily buy it to continue on the story. I'm interested, but I'm more interested to talk about it with a friend who has read it. That way we can be engaged in the conversation of it, not necessarily me spending my money on it, just to keep the lore alive, just to know what happens within that storyline. So I think to that point, it's entertaining, but not necessarily for me to go out to the rack and buy. Like, I would much more go to the store and talk to the clerk about it. Hey, what are your thoughts on this? And just talk to a friend about it, less so buy it myself.
Yeah, that kind of happened with me this week. I mean, I'm buying all of the current X-Men run. So all 6 or 7 or whatever, however many fucking issues they got now. I'm getting every single one as it comes out because I read House of X, Powers of X, but I haven't been bringing a whole lot of those on the show to talk about, partially because you have to read every single title in order to get this story, and that's kind of disappointing. But anyway, let's get into it. We finally have the covers of the comics on the video now, so
excellent. I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. This way, our viewers, if you're watching the archive, you can sort of just scan through the video and see if there's a particular issue that we talked about that you want to hear us talk about. Now you can do that and you can jump right to it. So starting off with Guardians of the Galaxy number 11. This is my first book of the week. Art by Corey Smith, story by Donnie Cates. My overall impressions, I think Donny Cates is killing it with Guardians of the Galaxy. This run has been really good. I think it's a solid two two arcs that he's done so far, and this one seems to be culminating nicely. Rocket in the Gundam has been really cool. I thought that was an interesting touch. What are your guys' thoughts? And I'll pass it to either one of you, whoever wants to go first.
All right, I'll go. First of all, I got a question. Is Moondragon the Phoenix now? Is he a mutant and she can access? She never had this kind of power level coming up. You know what I mean? Back in the day.
Right.
Right? She could maybe control some minds. Now she's making giant green fire-breathing dragons the size of, 100 times her size that actually breathe fire.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not like her normal power set. So it seems to be like she's just a Phoenix now. Like, you know how they just keep powering people up for no reason? I just think they should be more powerful. I do like young Warlock Magus, whatever he is. I will say I do like the story. I like Rocket flying Optimus Prime. That's a nice touch. And the little baby Groots who just what they keep saying, stab, 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 something like that. What are they saying? Like, I don't know. The Groot has Grootlets, I guess. I'll call them Grootlets. I like that. Yeah, the Grootlets who keep saying stab, 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 and a good ending that makes you, compels you to go to the next, because a dying Rocket Raccoon with a huge gun he can't lift has to save them all.
Yeah.
So all in all, I think the story was nicely told. It looked good too. It more than serviceable. It was interesting, good to look at. It wasn't. I like, even when you look at like the outside of the ship, you're thinking, how long does it take to draw the detail of this side of the ship? It's kind of amazing. So I like that effort. I like the detail, and I do like the run. I'm just not, oh my goodness, about it. But I do like the run, and it is very cosmic. And what is everybody going to just basically bow down to Star-Lord's father? They don't have the will to say no, and all that can save us is some Grootlets and a dying Rocket Raccoon with a gun he can't lift. We must get next issue to find out.
Right.
Yes. I really, really enjoyed the insurmountable odds. The fact that you have all of these eclectic people or characters, Gamora, you have Drax, they're all under the influence of like the Church of Truth, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And they've given up the will to live that kind of propels them to be a blank slate and be compelled by this church to fight. And I haven't been keeping up with Guardians of the Galaxy, so I'm not familiar as to why Groot is not just saying I am Groot. I'm sure there's a backstory behind that, why you can actually understand him now. But that was cool. I really like the Grootlets as well. The first few panels, I was kind of lost, kind of gaining my footing as to what's happening. But then towards the middle and the end, I was hooked. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting story. It compelled me, and I don't feel like I'm missing too much. So I would be willing to go back and read some, because I don't feel like that would be wasting my time. If I felt completely lost, I wouldn't feel confident enough to buy previous issues. But now this story is really good, really has me engaged. And towards the end, where Rocket actually has to save the day, a dying Rocket, like I'm compelled, because it seems like insurmountable odds. These little Grootlets and a dying Rocket up against all of these would-be villains and heroes that have now turned. It's really good. I like this issue. The art is good. Voltron-esque. So we're naming Gundam Optimus Voltron. That mech is good.
Do you remember a
TV
show on Adult Swim where these drunk got the Magus? Remember Magus? There was a TV show where these two, basically a drunk guy who's a good mechanic, got his sports card, sits it on top of a Gundam, and Magus XLR.
I don't remember. I don't know if I've ever seen that, to be honest with you.
Okay, so Megas XLR is a series. Think of it's the style of Biker Mice from Mars.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a couple of drunk guys. One guy who's a mechanic gets drunk, and his homie who has no use at all. He has his car, and they're supposed to use this to save the universe. But and he's in his car like shifting, but it controls the Megas, and he does suplexes and karate moves and destroys everything. It's a really good animated series. And if you're looking for, anyway, it's called Megas, Megas XLR. This looks very much like that. You guys would love it. It's adult-ish, but not adult-ish where everybody's having sex. You know what I mean? Like the new stuff.
Right.
But I feel like this was a slept-on series, and he would just upgrade it all the time, and then and he lived basically in his car, right? So the car is the head, right? If you just went to YouTube and just put Megas XLR, you'd be like, it's a zoom, and then all of a sudden Megas would be like, so this rocket made me think of that. I know that's a bit on a tangent, but
it's all right. That's what you're known for.
Yeah, there we go. Tangent man. So yeah, good book, good solid book to a series. You kind of know all the players, right? If you just even kind of were into them at any one time, there's really not any new. Because the Church of even in there's a Guardians of the Galaxy animated series. I don't know if you guys watch it, right?
I've seen one or two
episodes. Is in that. The Church of Belief is in that. So all those concepts are there. But Donny Cates is a good writer. Oh, I can't think of what he's written that I can remember. I know his name has come up a lot in things I've enjoyed. So good book.
Yeah, Cosmic Ghost Rider, I think was his idea. So, all right, yeah. I mean, the only reason I picked this is the Guardians of the Galaxy is sort of my go-to mindless read. It's a nice book to just kind of fall back on and enjoy at the end of a day. It's not anything too special, but it's got that Saturday morning cartoon flavor to it.
Yeah.
So. All right, moving on. The next issue we're going to talk about is Silver Surfer number 34 from back in 1990. So I was telling Emmanuel before we got on stream and Russ before you joined, the main reason I picked this was I was going through my my Marvel Comics digital collection and my Comixology account. And I found this book, and I was like, when the hell did I buy this? Like, I don't remember purchasing it. I don't remember getting it free. But I was like, well, I've got it, and I don't remember reading it, so let's check it out. I liked the dream aspect of it, just because Silver Surfer is this, cosmic, super powerful superhero. Like, how is he affected by a dream? Is he susceptible to things that he normally wouldn't be susceptible to? The inner monologue is kind of interesting. And I've always liked that about the character. And they did that with the animated series on Fox really well, where you got the sort of what was going on inside of his head as he was, going through space or whatever. So, yeah, I'll pass it to Emmanuel first. What are your thoughts?
So, as you were talking about the animated series, I'm thinking about the, Jessica Alba Fantastic Four run when they did The Rise of the Silver Surfer. How different a film it would be had he had his monologue instead of Norman Rad just being this figure that only spoke when spoken to. If he had inner monologue, it would give more depth to the character. Now that's what makes this comic a lot more richer, because you get to know the character, his thoughts, feelings, emotions, the devastating things that happened to him, which caused him to be the Silver Surfer. But the art itself, by today's standards, I'm thinking it's kind of crude, but back in the day, that was what was done. That's how they were illustrated. So definitely appropriate style for back in the day. Looking at it now, you can see how the I wouldn't even call them mistakes, but how we've upgraded, so to speak, how we have a different style.
Yeah, the styles have definitely changed for sure.
Yeah. And it always takes me a while to get into the Silver Surfer's monologue. I don't really like a lot of verbose comics. I'd leave that up to like actual novels, or if this is what it's supposed to be. Now, I understand that's what it's supposed to be for Silver Surfer, so I'm into it. It just kind of gets me a while to get into that rhythm. But afterwards, I'm there, I'm locked, I'm hooked. This series doesn't, or this issue doesn't really want me to go, doesn't move me to go past it. I would discuss it with a friend. I would see if you read the next episode. How does this storyline play out with Thanos? Does he defeat him? This is the introduction of Thanos. Like, what's going on? I would be much more inclined to discuss it with you than to buy it myself.
Okay. Ron Lim art classic back in the day. Does it hold up? Well, you know, there's certain things that are classic, but not necessarily like if I were to introduce this to somebody new to comics, this wouldn't fly. Right.
Yeah.
This is it for us old heads that know that and remember Jim Starlin, because I could never read a Jim Starlin book issue by issue. Jim Starlin is a novel writer with animation. You know, with this is, you got to sit down and consume and marinate and all that to really get into. This isn't necessarily a dig, but this is not, because when you think of everything that happened in the book, none of it actually matters except for him meeting Thanos.
Thanos at the, yeah.
None of it is any, you know, so 90% of the
It was
book,
all a dream.
right? He didn't really, Silver Surfer didn't move forward as a being because of this experience.
No.
Right? We just basically walked through his not mattering dream so that he could meet Thanos. Right? Now, me from back when this came out, 2007, having read that, I would have liked it because, you know, there's only certain books that really give you sort of depth and that level of monologue and all that. And Jim Starlin was great for that. But I always found that I had to read Jim Starlin stuff in sort of a graphic novel format. I had to prepare myself for it. I had to go in and I had to just lay in it until I absorbed what I could. Right? So is it classic? Yes. Does it hold up? Unless you have that nostalgia for it being classic, I would say no. Because, you know, and I do like a good monologue. I do like to know what a character's thinking. But if you put me a whole issue for it was all a dream and nothing matters and it's not going to show up again later, then you could have just cut to that.
Okay.
A lot easier. And, you know, maybe it's one of those comics, you know, those, let's just stop all the action and just go somewhere in the head of our character and then get into it the next issue. Maybe it was meant to be one of those. But, you know, my young comic buyer that I was at that time loves this. I loved Ron Lim. I love Jim Starlin. If I see a book like this with this kind of art at a bookstore, I stop and open it up.
Okay.
Right. But then I'm gonna have to find a place to sit down and get a latte because I'm gonna have to think in order to read it.
Right. Right.
So those are my thoughts. Still only $1.
Right. Yeah.
2007. I thought it was earlier.
No, this is 1990. This is when this one came out. This is February 1990. I'm not sure where this falls in the overall Infinity Gauntlet story. If this is before or I think it's before the original Infinity Gauntlet story that he did.
I would think so. And one other thing I wanted to add, all the ads in here are video games or comic shops.
Yeah.
And none of those video games have survived to this day. You know, there's one Sky Shark, you know, I was like, okay, what, 8 Eyes, which I kind of remember, but
right.
No one's, you know, and then everything else was comic shops. There's no, like, that was all the ads. East Coast Comics, right? Every ad was, and one ad even has a game on one half and a full page ad, and a comic convention on the other hand. Everything here was game.
What about yeah? What about that 1-900 number?
Oh man, right? Games and comics. Did you miss an issue? Call this number. I just found that interesting. That
Yeah,
there were.
I really like the ads. Now that you mention it, when reading comic books as a kid, I really enjoyed the ads, like the spree candies, the those little fish things, like all those advertisements. They were a part of the comic. I really enjoyed that.
Agreed.
All right. Moving on. The next issue, Russ, is your first issue.
Okay, this is Avengers, the latest Avengers, number 26. Now, to give you some background, apparently the Avengers were not invented when we all think they were invented. There was a day unlike any other. There actually were Avengers during prehistoric times, right? Including Odin, who was carrying what is now Thor's hammer. The Phoenix was a member. They had a Black Panther. They had a Ghost Rider. They had a Hulk or something like that. And this is the story of the character that became. And so there's been a few issues where they tell you the story of the Ghost Rider from that time, who was riding, by the way, a flaming woolly mammoth, who was after, so. But this is the story of the guy who became the Hulk-ish, but also combined him with the, what do you call that? The Star Brand.
Yeah.
Which I kind of always, loved and wanted to be more. So I just, it was interesting to me. It's an Avengers sort of in the middle of everything, but they gave an origin story to one of the characters. I thought the art was good. I was interested to see where he come from. How does one become a Hulk back in the caveman days? And what makes you angry and want to kill and smash? Because, every Hulk must smash, right? Otherwise you don't get into the Hulk Club. And what was that motivation to become that and stay that? So I thought it was interesting. The art I felt was compelling, and that is why I chose it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like the art. It reminded me of Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri with the sketchy lines, the way that was done. So that was good. It's hard for me to get past the gay caveman.
I'm with you. That actually threw me a little bit, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't really get that in Marvel, and you get it, but they just went in.
Like
it was never, I was like, okay. And I wasn't mad. And it was just,
no.
you don't expect that from a full-on Marvel comic.
Right.
You have gay characters, but this is like germane to the story, their relationship, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then I had to look like, is there maybe a problem with me that this took me out of it a little bit? Like, what is my tolerance level, right? Like that, should that be an issue for me? So yeah, it registered.
Right.
And then I did what I could do to let it go because I'm older than you guys, so it's a different, impact for me from my time.
I thought it was funny. I feel like it was thrown in there just to make you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's kind of an interesting play on the concept of how people are born and all that kind of stuff. And so I liked it, but it did sort of it was a little jarring at first. The inner monologue or the red text boxes, I really liked that stuff that was going on, especially at the very beginning of the issue where it was just talking about like how insignificant I felt as I was reading the first part of it, and I was like, yeah, okay, I do feel small in this world. But it sort of puts everything else into context and the rise of this Star Brand character. So it was all right. I think that it lost its steam towards the end, and I kind of fell off on the issue even after he got his powers, because I feel like the character changes a lot after he becomes Star Brand.
Yeah, he's tragic, like every Hulk.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, those are my thoughts, Emmanuel.
I actually liked the aspect of the relationship between the two. Now it kind of reminds me of some issue you brought up before, Russ, about a caveman and a dinosaur, and the animated thing where
Oh yeah,
they I forget exactly the name of it, forgive me, but
Primal.
Primal, right? So they developed this great relationship, but I mean it's more of a human pet relationship. This, how else could you explain such an interesting dynamic? They're both outcasts because of the way that they think. Because this is in a time where it's cavemen and people are, in my interpretation of, they're like unga bunga, and these people are actually like having formulated thoughts. Not only are they together in their mindset, but also romantically as well. So that was not only his best friend, but like his love interest, his world, and that compounded with this is the only person that gets me on multiple levels. I'm not just I don't have just a best friend and I'm out looking for love. I have a best friend and this is my love. And then once that's severed, how deep does that take you? How far do you go into your own self? So I think it served that purpose and it encapsulated all of his hopes, dreams, and desires into one person. And then what happens when that one person is snatched from you? How much rage do you feel? If Betty Ross, and speaking of hope, if Bruce Banner's Betty Ross was also, what was his buddy's name? I forget the guy that had green hair afterwards. But if that was all wrapped up into one
Hmm.
that was taken from you, how much of an impact? So I think it serviced in that way, like that relationship. And then seeing towards the end, oh, this is the makeup of the Avengers. This is the first incarnation of the Black Panther. And this isn't Thor Odin's son. This is Lord Odin. So like this is the inception of that kind of like the Justice Society versus Justice League of America. That was good.
Okay, I got. So I am interested in the origin of all these characters. Like, what brings Odin to Earth to just kick it, and who is that Phoenix,
Right.
right?
Right.
And how does Black Panther exist before Wakanda? So those stories, all I want to know the origin of all of them, right? And did they call themselves the Avengers? You know, currently in Iron Man, Tony Stark is stuck in the past. Does he coin it back then in the past?
Okay.
So you know, I anyway, I was interested in origin story. Does I agree? I think it very well sets up why someone would turn into a rage monster and want to smash, and really have nothing else but smashing to keep them moving forward. So I get that.
Do we know? It, well, I guess we don't know yet because this is the latest issue. But the villain characters, if they're going to be elaborated on at all,
Well,
the villain
I
monsters.
so if you've been following this run, they've shown up already. There's some of these stories have
Hmm.
already been told. They just Avengers sort of goes back in Avengers and then comes back and tells the story. And then goes Celestials.
Okay.
So what at who can fight a Celestial
Hmm.
at the in that time frame?
Right.
You need
Right.
the power of the Phoenix. You need the power of Odin with the hammer of Thor. You need the Star Brand, which is basically Superman Hulk. You need, you know, Ghost Rider who can ride his fully flaming mammoth or play or a flaming pterodactyl, I guess, if it comes down to it, right?
Okay.
Uh, so you need, you know, what how that power level, where does it come from? It can't come from a regular old caveman.
No.
And there's not unless you have some great sorcerer. Um, this the one thing that did exist back then is a celestial, right? Something that powerful that all these Avengers and all this great power still could actually lose the battle.
So it's almost like Ancient Aliens.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like. I
I'll
like
go with
it.
that.
I like it. All
But I
right.
do invite you to go to some of the older issues in this run to get more of that story.
Yeah, I've heard Jason Aaron's name thrown around. I've never actually dug into any of his work, but it's a pretty interesting high level concept. So I like that. I would be interested to see maybe the first 5 issues or something that he's done on this run and see sort of how that started off. All right.
All right. So my next issue is Far Sector #1. Now, I chose this for a few reasons. One of them is I really do love this artist. He also drew Naomi Emanuel, if you had a chance to
I
look
could
at it.
tell.
So I love this artist, right? Pretty much anything he draws, I want to read. Okay. Second, I Young Animal. We talked about Young Animal and that uh, Young Animal or the writers or the whole imprint sort of looks at superheroing or that the universe differently from a different lens that you're not often getting. So I knew that would happen here. The third reason is the writer. N.K. Jemisin is an amazing, she is an amazing sci-fi writer, Nebula award winner, and all of that. So once I found that, and I had heard about it, and her books were on my list of things to read, but she is known for world building, like seeing all the pieces of a puzzle that you really have to do read 100 pages to get. She's already got in her head, and she can lay that out, and that is sort of one of the things she is amazing at. So I thought, okay, that you're going to put me into a whole new world in the farthest sector. Maybe you can do it. And I actually put there's one book I think that she written that I have on hold at the library so that I can read. So those three reasons made me choose this, and I thought, to me, visually it was amazing. So first of all, visually I loved. There was no panel that I did not like. It was cool and crisp, like wintergreen gum, right?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Everything was lined. There was no foolishness anywhere. Yet you could see all of it. You could see the the size of it, and I liked how this writer sort of was able to get me through the depth of that history because there's a lot to unpack here. You know what I mean? If you don't have the ability to do that, and I liked how she really didn't even use her ring until maybe the end. Did she, she didn't even fly or anything else.
No.
And I like the secrets. Like there's something special about her ring, and there's something special about why she was chosen. And they touched it and they moved on. So because that art draws me in. So that's why I chose it. Your thoughts, Emmanuel? What do you think?
I like the artistry as well. It's very. Let me go stick to the art. The art is very nice. No affiliation to Winter Green Gum, by the way. Um, the art is very, very good. I really like it. The story, I find myself drawn more and more to comics that have a detective style story that is like who done it and the noir and the mystery, and the fact that the mystery wasn't necessarily who done it but why it was done. That it's hard to have a twist in 2019 when we've seen so many like this was all a dream or this person is a clone or this person is that, but this seems kind of fresh, although we may read on and it may be another trope, but still right now, as of right now, this journey, this ride, it seems well worth it and I'm entertained. I enjoyed the fact that, like you said, she doesn't really utilize her ring that much. It was raining, so she had a raincoat. There was no seat at the table, so she just made a seat at the table. It was very practical. It wasn't so action packed right now, which is fine because this is still building to that. And I feel the anticipation of that. This is well written, well drawn. I'm looking forward to the next issue.
Yeah, I know, Russ, you're probably put off by some of the comments I made in the Google Doc, but those were, I feel like, more just talking points for me. I think this is probably my favorite issue of the week that we picked. The artwork is clean. It feels modern. I did put in the notes. Normally, I like that thick black comic booky, feel to the art, but this is more color blocking, and so you have these blocks of color rather than outlined images, and I thought it was good. It really kind of pulls you through, and it does have a more digital, modern feel to it. It feels like a comic book that exists in 2019. You know, the style was really good. I, in terms of the writing, I got lost with some of the inner monologue because of the way that it was done, and I don't know if that's an art decision or a writing decision, but I felt like some of the of her inner monologue could have been one or two dialogue boxes rather than being scattered throughout the panels. And um, I don't know. I thought there was a lot of it too. I thought that there could have been more in the dialogue between the characters to get more of a sense of who she is. But I got a very Star Trek meets noir vibe, and I like that, and I'm interested to see where it goes, and I want to know who kills the guy that killed the person that she was going after. You know, um, I do like that we didn't really see how she uses her ring, so it'll be interesting to see how, because that's sort of what defines each Green Lantern, right? Is the way in which they use their ring, because you can do pretty much anything with it. And so that's going to be as much of an extension of her personality as the way that she was dealing with these other characters. And so that'll be cool to see. But yeah, I thought it was good. I thought that her being a human was a missed opportunity. I felt like she could have been, like the Space Alpha Dreads dude, and maybe been one of his race, just to do something a little different. But overall, I liked it. I really enjoyed it, and I thought, yeah, this is something I could see myself reading next month.
I like the little mysteries. Like, we're only beginning to understand the motivation of the three species. I like when she made the chair and some green thing was sitting in it that somehow she made.
Yeah.
And like, what is that about? Right. I think she had to not be any one of those three species because of their nature and their warlike nature. And any Green Lantern that was any of those species would have been a problem politically.
Okay.
Because, and these are some deadly species. Like, one of them eats other ones. You know what I mean? And here they are, this cosmic balance. I like the world building in that there's a lot of ways and places you can go, and you just sort of have to go along for the ride, right? There's a rich history here in which two of them lived on the same planet, one lived on a third planet, and then somebody came and troublemaking them, and then they started killing each other, and this is built on the ashes. That's a rich history that you get all in one issue, right?
Yeah.
One of the characters, I'm sorry, one of the aliens reminds me way too much of like 16-year-old girls right now. The Ed species.
Yeah, I see that.
It's like one of those kiss girls, or I don't know what kiss girls. I don't know if you guys are up on that, but go to YouTube and they're like promoting lip gloss and hair bands, and it just seems like that's what would happen if we did what we should do: put them all on the ship and just relegate them to their own planet. But it just seems, it's funny, but it works.
Yeah, I feel like it was more just a commentary on Instagram and Twitter culture than it was. It did sort of, it was jarring at first, and I was like, okay, but after I started reading through it, I was like, it doesn't really bother me that they're using this. It's more just it's sort of a meta commentary, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to your point. He says this book definitely looks like it took place in 2019, not just in the look, but in the commentary about humanity, right? And again, I feel like that's part of what Young Animal, the imprint, sort of brings, is this fresh, modern look at these worlds that we already know and love. But I think she didn't have to be from Earth, but I think it looks to me like there's going to be a reason why she was the lantern that had to be.
Okay.
Why she was the lantern that had to wield that ring. And what is that ring compared to any other lantern ring? What is different and unique about it? But clearly something is. And what is it? Can she create life or something? Because she did kind of in that chair, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, but she's interesting, and she's modern, right? What does she call someone? her word choices, like she from some,
Diddy.
yeah, right, some New York suburb. Like this woman could be somebody I know.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that was interesting because, I don't know what she thinks, but she could be someone who existed in my, actual vicinity.
How many Earth Lanterns are there? There are
Too
a
many.
lot of Earth Lanterns.
There are. But there's a couple of ways you can look at it. You know how back in the book we read about which one was it? About how Earth humans were created in Marvel based on the bleeding of a god, and that blood. What was it? It was the Avengers one.
Yeah, this is the last book we talked about. Yeah.
The Celestial, his blood basically was the thing that made us, or humans in the Marvel universe, have powers and other thing, and it manifests itself in those mutations. So what started things in our universe? Is there something special about Earth that has yet to be shown, which explains why Earth shows up so much, even though they really have no business? Why is it that the X-Men are in the Shi'ar dominance, right? Really, it's no reason for them to even be involved that far. You can't even see that star from Earth, and yet they're over there doing political stuff, right?
Right.
So maybe powers that be in these comic book universes think there is something special about Earth, where
because
we might not.
We're the Earth Riders, but when you look at, well, from the comics that I've read, every other alien is like, humans. Like either like, I think it's because we're the ones writing it. We're the ones writing the story. Of course, we're going to be the special, unique ones.
Mm-hmm. And we're also the ones who don't really understand how things are done, like we do. Like things are not done that way.
Infantile species.
Yes, we are an infantile species, and I like that because when I think of humanity in our real world, I kind of feel like we're an infantile species.
Yeah.
And according to Vulcans, we stink.
Well, we probably do. And I could go somewhere with that, but I'll just
jumping franchises.
All right, Emmanuel.
All right.
So, speaking of jumping franchises, we're going to jump into the multiverse. This has been a theme that in my writing or reading this past week, we're going into Spider-Verse #2. This is the updated version of Spider-Verse. This is following along the lines of, or following Miss, what is she called again? She's Aunt May.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. That's right. Spider-Man. It's a very interesting title. And she's the one with powers. She's the one that was bitten. And Ben Parker, Uncle Ben, her husband, still alive. And Peter's still alive. So this is one of those best case scenarios, sort of, where all three of these individuals are still alive. But yet Aunt May, Spider-Man, has been bitten. She's the one with the powers. And they're all aware. The three of them are aware. Peter is still brilliant, just powerless. And Ben is still just this kind-hearted, great, no-flaw character that we all know and love him to be. And this follows, in this particular universe, what happens when they already are aware of the multiverse, when Ben or Peter in his reasoning says, if this is a multiverse, everything that could happen has happened, will happen, because these different multiverses are happening simultaneously. So there could be, and he kind of correctly prophesies or predicts that an evil version of them might come. And in just that moment, lo and behold, it's as if we're in a comic book. It happens. An evil version of the three of them, not only Spider-Man, who's infused with the current symbiotes, the evil version of Ben Parker and evil version of Peter Parker comes into play. And because it's a multiverse, they don't solicit help, but it's really good. I'm not going to end it, but it's really good in that it's not over the top with the artistry. I liked it. It didn't take away, nor did it give too much. It just seemed right in pattern with the writing. And the writing itself it was kind of sort of a placement holder. It wasn't anything super spectacular, but I liked it in that it was entertaining for the time being. It was what I purchased, so to speak. It didn't exceed my expectations, nor did it let me down. It was exactly where it should be in that sweet spot.
I would say this belongs in 1967 with Batman because this is campy. um, I think we should point out that Miles Morales is the one that's sort of jumping between the Spider Verses or the different dimensions. So he shows up to help Spider-Man fight Aunt Carnage, and
On Carnage.
yeah. And
That's
then
beautiful.
and then there's a like a negative verse Miles that jumps through the portal to join the fray, and then so there's good Miles versus bad Miles. I really want to know what the hell happened with Bad Miles. I need to know more about this character. Who is he? Is he from the same universe as Aunt Carnage, or is he from a different Spider Verse?
Aunt Carnage.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was enjoyable. There was nothing that really jumped out at me as like, oh, this is amazing or whatever. But it was fun. It was a nice, lighthearted read. And yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts. The art's clean and consistent, and it's a goofy story.
Yes. So it is a goofy story and a lighthearted read, but it pulls a little at your heartstrings, and it's a little Disney.
Right.
And Aunt May and her speeches, and Ben, if we all worked together and we were designed it, all of that. It's all cosmic, and that was good. I was entertained by Aunt Carnage and Miles socking Aunt Carnage in the face.
Right. Right.
Right. I was like, did he just sock Aunt May? Really? I like the fact that Aunt May is taking the most from the best from the men in her life. She takes the heart of Ben, and she takes the technology of her son and incorporates that into what she does. She recognizes who they are for her as a good matriarch would, happy or not. I like the possibility that this powerless Peter Parker could become a Carnage.
Yes.
That was a nice twist. It wasn't vital. This book wasn't like, oh my, because Spider-Verse is supposed to be a huge thing.
Right.
Right. Spider-Verse is like what is it that DC had? The Infinite Universe Crisis. Spider-Verse is supposed to be Crisis level. This is a little more pedestrian, Spider of the Week type level. Right. Not necessarily bad, but not a vital book to own. Certainly an enjoyable read, nonetheless. And who shaved down Aunt May's teeth? Right? Did she shave her teeth? Because they're all spiky now, right? And maybe that's just a Venom thing. How Venom sees her, stuff like that. Maybe it's a Venom thing. But they just straight socked Aunt May in the. In the face, right? And what is this? And this the anti-Miles wears a hoodie.
Yeah.
On top of his costume is iconic. Why you need a hoodie, man? It's already there.
So did the animated version of him, right?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
I would be interested to see. I'm always interested to see all the different Spider-Man. And it seems like there's so many you can create. So definitely something I will follow as far as the story. But is the book worth what's the book price?
Is it $4, I think? Yeah.
$4, $3.99? No. But is the graphic novel, when it all comes together, probably going to be a good read, a good fun read.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then I saw the thing at the end. I don't know if these are actual different Spider-Men that are coming up, or to just someone created and send them in. But I like these other different possible Spider-Man or characters. What was it? Sea Spider and Spider, who apparently wears white Jordans in a white spider suit.
Spider.
Spider. Spider Sting, interesting also. So yeah, not bad. Fun.
All right, Manuel, your next issue.
Moving right along, keeping in theme with the different multiverses, we have Flash Forward, which follows the exploits of Wally West Flash, the fastest man in the multiverse. Not necessarily the fastest man alive anymore. He's the fastest man in the multiverse. He was granted the ability to go from a multiverse to multiverse from this cosmic being that I forget his name. I'm looking here.
Sort of a Watcher analog.
Right, and
yeah, Watcher with a
sort
really
of
complicated name.
To right the wrongs. There's this dark force that's going and spreading and seeding its way through the multiverse, and it's challenged Wally West, this Flash, to right those wrongs, to correct those mistakes. And he jumped at the opportunity, sort of, because he wants to atone. He, being Wally, wants to atone for going crazy himself and killing his friends. Now, that in and of itself is an interesting storyline. This is his road to redemption, but as previously stated before, how can you, without going back in time, how can you correct those mistakes? You can't undead a person, like his best friends that he's killed with his own hands by his own means. He killed them, and now he's going through worlds and worlds, just helping out random strangers. And he happens upon a world where Superman and multiple powered heroes are now vampires. And he meets Arsenal, one of his best friends that he killed in his world, on his world. So chaos ensues because of the Vampire Justice League, or the Justice League of Vampires. Problem I have with this is, if Superman is a vampire and he gets his power from the sun, what? But it's interesting. There's heart here, and I really like the story of Wally West being redeemed by his actions and being the Wally West that we all know and love. So, you guys' takes?
Okay, I'll go. First of all, I noticed that the Superman was Ultraman. He has a U on his chest and not an S. And Ultraman's automatically evil to begin with. But there was a parallel universe where Batman became a vampire. And this looks like it's the continuation of that universe, where Batman became a vampire, then decided to bite up all the Justice League so they could efficiently, handle the world. Because, Batman is always drastic like that, always, extra. Maybe the fact that Superman is a vampire and possibly not at full strength explains why Wally West could somewhat defeat him, because
with
Superman, hello. So maybe Superman can't stay in the sun that long, but it heals him, but it also hurts him, but it still gives him power. Maybe he's in that twilight middle ground there. I feel like the art is not modern. It's clear, but there's just a lot of, it's not that clear. I'm not a fan of the art. It's not bad art, terrible art, but it just doesn't draw me in. It doesn't. I'm a fan of Wally West, so I'm here for Wally West. I like the whole different universes, and every episode of the universes. Last episode, he ran into President Superman, which was the Barack Obama Superman. So I like, it's like I like a good Elseworlds book, right? Take my toys, put them in another universe, see what happens, right? I'm okay with that. I don't feel like it was compelling, but I can see in the long-term story how it works to heal Wally West. I still don't think they should have made him murder somebody. They could have just made him murder someone in a dream or something. I'm still angry over that. I don't think this is a must-have book. but the story does interest me because I want to know where Wally West goes. He's
Right.
my Flash, right? I don't care what you say about Barry or Impulse. Wallace West is my Flash. Period. That's it. I'm not even getting in an argument about it, so I got to follow him, and that's sort of why I'm here. Matt, what you got?
Um, the artwork feels very 90s to me, which I
I
like.
agree.
Um, we didn't mention the writer, Scott Lobdell. He's been shit on, for years. I think mainly because he followed Chris Claremont on X-Men. But I personally really like his writing. I think he's a good writer. Um, so it was an interesting story, and I think the stuff that I really like from DC recently, at least the last 6 months or so, has been all of the multiverse stuff because it doesn't take. You don't have to know a whole lot of backstory to jump into one of these comics.
Okay.
Like the Tales from the Dark Multiverse. I've got Blackest Night sitting in the closet that I need to read. I've read the other two that came out, the Superman one and the Batman one. This I didn't realize was it feels like those comics because it does start off with Farragut, whatever his name is, the Watcher from the DC universe.
Fusionaut, I think.
Is it Fusionaut? Is that how you pronounce it?
Like Micronaut?
Yeah. So that's kind of cool, and I didn't know that this existed. So that was cool. Um, Superman. Why is he not more powerful? He should, I get the whole sun argument. But if he's a vampire, doesn't that sort of augment his ability? Like, can he should be able to like absorb it from the moon or something to be just as powerful,
So my argument is he's absorbing it from the moon, but but he's not as powerful. And the sunlight is also negating some of the vampire skills because the sun energy is not good for him. So I'm thinking that whatever that mix, like I'm getting power, but it's killing me at the same time as an overall reduction in power level. That's the excuse I'm using.
Okay.
It's stand to work because I couldn't otherwise be satisfied with him being trapped by wood.
Yeah.
Well, it's still magic, right? Is
Well,
vampire magic or is it mutancy? What is your take?
I'm not entirely sure. I was looking up before we got on. I was like, well, who is Dracula in the DC universe? Like, let me check that out for a minute because Batman had to become a vampire from somewhere, and I don't think
Yeah.
they addressed that in this issue. Um, yeah, I don't know. It is crazy to me that, and it makes sense that Bruce Wayne would be the one to bite everybody else. Like, yeah, we need to do this because I'm a vampire now. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was a fun issue. I overall, like I said, I like the multiverse stuff that DC's doing because you don't have to have years and years of back history or lore to jump into
Right.
it because they're mixing everything up. So it's going to be all fresh and new and different.
Are
Um,
you are you familiar with the new DC character called Sideways?
no,
It's
Sideways,
another.
yes.
Okay, so it's another trying to be Peter Parker-esque. That's where I first saw Fusionaut. Sideways, his power is that he can basically slash a hole in universes, create warps, and walk through.
okay,
So it's sideways to universes, and going through those universes where he encountered this Fusionaut guy was the first time I saw him.
okay.
So now DC has Watchers.
How long ago did that issue come out, or was he
Sideways
debuted?
is not more than a couple years old, I would think.
Okay,
Uh, and they went through, I think, 12 issues, and then that was it. So he's still around. He didn't die, uh, but he did go into other universes and ran into different versions of a lot of DC characters. Some of them very tragic. Uh, Like all the time Superman turned into something for some stupid comic way back when. Well, all of those, the time he was an ant, the time he was all those Superman actually exist. But it went for like 13 issues.
Okay.
2018. Number one came out in February 2018. So if you're interested to see if and it's similar art actually. Interested to see if DC can try to make a different Spider-Man. Check it out.
All right. Well, guys, that does all 6 issues that we had lined up for today. Any final thoughts before we jump off?
I think my ending sign off is always going to be still not an X-Men fan. Just it's not relevant to anything we spoke about here, but that would be my sign off until otherwise.
The world will allow haters to exist, so that's okay. My sign off would be see if you can find, and you will find them on YouTube, some episodes of Megas XLR, MEGAS space XLR. It's fun, it's funny, it's sci-fi, it's got a Ninja Turtles kind of vibe with the little Voltron built in. Not even Voltron, because it's all one. But anyway, I think you would enjoy it.
All right. And on that note, next week I will have an X-Men book for Emmanuel to read.
Yes, force it down his throat.
Still going to be the same sign off, probably. But we'll see.
All right, we're out.
Later days.